Good morning and welcome to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and today I'm joined by Laura Bradburn, who makes her welcome return to A Celtic State of Mind, and Kevin McCloskey dialing in all the way from Hungary. I am broadcasting from the Acsom bar. Yes, we do have a bar, and maybe in the future we'll broadcast a lot more often from here. And Laura has informed me today that there's been a few issues over the last day or two on StreamYard. So if things aren't syncing up between the audio and the visuals, it's not an Acsom issue, and we will soldier on. Today, we are here to talk about our second and final game of the Japanese tour. It's Gamba, Osaka, and the team lineup is out. We will run through that individually. Laura, what do you make of the lineup?
I mean, it's one of these situations, isn't it, where you know that regardless of what our manager says, he perhaps hasn't watched every single game since he left, and he's obviously trying to.
Are you doubting Brendan Rodgers? Are you
Listen,
saying he's maybe embellished that a wee bit?
Listen, I've said this before and I'll say it again. I wasn't on the show when Brendan came back, and needless to say, I wasn't thrilled about it. But now that he's here, I'm like, let's go whole hog, lie to me, baby. That's what I'm all about. So I'll take it on with as big a pinch of salt as you want. But the point, I guess, is I do think he's trying to figure out exactly what he's got at his disposal. That's the nature of what he's trying to do. I think it's probably a bit of a factor in why we haven't signed as many players. I don't think he knows exactly what skills he's got at his disposal, what players he's got, what he needs to improve on. I think he'll have a much better idea after the game the other day, and he'll have a much better idea after today. But as far as the team goes, you get your standard pre-season appearance from Stephen Welsh, which seems to happen. I'm glad to see Turnbull in there, because as much as I try and think rationally, there's the irrational bit of my brain that likes to think he's still got a future at Celtic. Tomoki, I just, now that he's got his new deal, I really want to see him cement a place in the team. And as for the rest of the team, it's all players we know very well and we expect a lot from. So I'm excited to see some of the changes that are in there, but also to see them try and really stamp their authority on getting a place in the team for the season proper.
I think that's a fair comment about Brendan Rodgers and the aspect of patience. I mentioned yesterday, Kevin McCloskey was on the show, around the fact that it took him a wee while to get the players in place. Last time round, and that was even with Champions League qualifiers as well. They used to come dead early in the pre-season, and when you look at the Lincoln Red Imps, there were no signings in there. We were playing with Sede Yanko at centre half. Kevin's laughing because we had a wee discussion afterwards. Where is
in 2 days, Paul? Why did you bring him up?
Well, where he is now is Rotherham, so I think he's found his level, Kev. But he's got a very good agent, because he's had some tremendous moves in his time. But that is what we're seeing. We're seeing Brendan Rodgers, Kevin, aren't we? Having a look at every player that he can. I mean, when we look at the bench, we've even got an opportunity today, I hope, to see Home coming in and making an appearance as well. We'll go through the bench in more detail as the pre-match progresses. But I think Laura's right. He's just having a look at all the players. He's thought to himself, let's try Maeda through the middle, whilst maybe Kyogo's got a slight injury to his shoulder. I guess the question would be Abada Forrest. Who plays where? I know Forrest can play up the left, can't he?
Yeah, that's it. I was reading that one between those two. Been looking at the team. I've got Abada on the right, Forrest on the left. He's done that before, and I think he's just as effective on the left as he is on the right. And we saw how effective Abada was at linking up with Maeda on Wednesday afternoon as well. So I think that's probably how those front three will line up. But yeah, to kind of go back on what Laura's saying as well, I think, spot on. Rodgers he's come in, he's given it, he's watched every game. He's probably not. He's probably watched quite a lot of them, but not every game. He's got an idea about every player and what their abilities are and what they can do, but he's seen that in a different system. Now he's wanting to fit them into his own. So yeah, I think again, I'll go back to what kind of something I was saying yesterday or the day before. As fans, we've just got to be a bit patient with these games. It's about getting minutes in the legs and getting fitness levels up, getting that communication and understanding back, which was sorely lacking in Wednesday's game. And that's what these games are all about. And then it's Rodgers looking and seeing how does everybody just fit into how he wants the team to play?
Mhm.
So, yeah, I mean, that's what I look forward to about these games. And then, yeah, Stephen Welsh slowly morphing into this team's Owen O'Connell and getting these games at the start of the season before drifting out and being replaced by the proper first teamers.
Well, O'Connell has now become today's Yanko. Where is he now? Don't Google it. Tell us where he's playing his football. I have no idea. I've not looked at his career for a while. He played for a while down south. I think Brendan Rodgers has also spoken about the fact that the players were brought in. Now, are we able, Laura, to say that we're brought in 4? We're just waiting for the 2 South Koreans to be announced. The players that were brought in, project signing has become something like a bad word. It shouldn't really be like that. I think it's important for a club like Celtic to be buying young talent that, they're not ready for the first team, but maybe in a season and a half or 2 years they will be. And every so often you get someone who surprises you and they are ready and you didn't expect them to be at that level. So that's fine, but it's only fine, Laura, if you supplement that and complement it with the kind of first picks, guys that you're going to bring in who's going to make a difference to that first team 11.
Yeah, well, it was one of the big frustrations I had with with Ange leaving is, we always talk about building from a position of strength and how we never do it. And this pre-season was the pre-season that I thought we really would do it. You can't blame Rodgers, I don't think, if that doesn't happen this pre-season because, like I said, he's new into the job, and as much as he knows a lot about the club, the team he's been presented with is going to be different from the one that he left, obviously, so he has to get to know that. But I think the signings we've made hopefully will improve the squad. It's hard to know without having seen Tillio and Home on a regular basis and these new Korean players. But like you say, the target, I would want to move away from, and this is regardless, some of the players I'll name here have served us greatly, but and it's not a slight on them, but I would want to move away from the Aaron Moyes, the McCarthys, the ones that come in to bolster the squad. You want somebody to come in and say to Kyogo, you better up your game because I'm actually good enough to take your shirt off you, or to say that to McGregor, or to say that to somebody else, because a rising tide rises all ships, or whatever the phrase is. And I think having players come in and immediately push the best players in the squad to be better will not only, it'll kill 2 birds with 1 stone, it'll help improve the squad, but it'll also help improve the first team. And obviously it's difficult to do that without knowing you've got a guaranteed winner on your hands. And bringing players from Australia and from Asia, as we've been doing, that can never be a guarantee because culture's so different and football is so different. But we've got enough data and evidence from over the past few years to suggest that if a player's good in those environments, they're going to be good in Scottish football, and we have to try and go with it.
Yeah, the next one that it looks as though we are going to introduce to Scottish football, we spoke about him yesterday, Kevin, Maik Nawrocki. I think that's the way you pronounce his name, and hopefully I don't have to say that again, because we'll know exactly how to pronounce his name before you know it. He will become, I believe, the 5th player that Celtic have signed from Legia Warsaw. So today's teaser is, who are the other 4? 5 Legia Warsaw players have signed for Celtic. I'm just going to see if between Laura and Kevin we can get the other 4. Kev, fire away.
Boric.
Oh, wait.
Juranovic.
Correct.
Klamala.
If Klamala was signed by Legia Warsaw, then we've got more than 5.
I'm not sure on him.
Right,
What about Dovcek or Jakinovski?
Dovcek and Jakinovski are both players that we signed from Legia Warsaw.
Where did we get Zaravsky from?
Who?
Zaravsky? Magic?
I'm just checking because you guys are throwing big spanners into my question here. Give me a second. Patrick Klamala. No, we signed him from a bizarrely named side that wasn't Legia Warsaw. And the other one was Zuraski, wasn't it? Because I was also thinking about Paweł Brozek. Remember him?
Oh, yeah.
He came in on loan to try and cement his place in the Polish international team, and he barely played. Zuraski came in from Wisła Krakow.
Wisła Krakow.
So, yeah, there you go. I'm just now going to check Paweł Brozek to see if there's 6. and people in that comment section will be tearing their hair out because they'll know the answer straight off the bat. Brozek came in on loan under Neil Lennon. No, he came in from...
Somebody in the comments has said Shuggy Edvaldsson. I think he's getting mixed up there.
Yeah, it was Shuggy Dufcek. Edvaldsson came in from Iceland. And by the way, check out Edvaldsson's story, right? Because his granddad was, he was a war criminal and everything during World War II. His brother was an international footballer and done really, really well in Germany. And then his niece was an international gymnast or something for Iceland. It's an incredible story. One of those obscure footballers, Laura, that probably was book worthy if you actually wrote the whole story. But what we've got then is Boric, Zaraski, Dufcek, Jackie, and our new recruit. So there you go. Of the four, there's a couple of cult icons in there.
You can get a copy of this, by the way, guys.
That's not bad.
No
enough words in it, though, Laura.
That one.
Too many pictures.
It's a picture book. I don't think the guy that wrote it really knew what he was doing, but it's a lovely book.
I know, but aye. Super. By the way, before we go any further, what I want to do is I want to share with you from time to time we talk about a bit of negativity that you get online, and I think that that's just part and parcel of today's social environment, unfortunately, but you learn how to deal with that. What we did get last night, and I shared it with the group, was a beautiful message. I can only describe it as beautiful from someone who might be tuning in today, but he certainly does watch a Celtic State of Mind, and his name is Finbar Foley. Now, Finbar is a massive Celtic fan. He tunes into Acsom. We've got a beautiful email from him. I'm not going to tell you exactly what his personal circumstances are, but it is brilliant, Laura, to hear from people who listen to Acsom and who appreciate it and get something from it. Big shout out to Finbar.
Yeah, I just wanted to say a hello to him. I hope he's enjoying the show. I know that his message will have been directed very much at the people who have been contributing to this show on a regular basis the last few months. And without going into any detail, obviously, he expressed that he's going through things that I think a lot of us can identify with. And just to everybody who's watching, it's probably worth saying that, we get a lot of nice messages from people talking about how much this podcast helped them through lockdown, helps them through difficult periods in their life. And I think I can speak for everybody on the podcast and say that we get as much out of doing it as they do from watching it. I think it's, far too often people say, "Oh, football's just a game. It's just this, just that." It is a lot more than that, and it means a lot more to people than that. And I think the opportunity to come on here and speak with like-minded people about the game that you love, and in fact to revel in something that doesn't really matter, is the thing that makes it good. And I
indulging yourself. You're right, absolutely.
Yeah, and getting messages like that from somebody who's having a bit of a hard time of it. It's great to hear that you can help in a small way when you have some idea of what they're going through. So I hope you're watching, Finbar. If you're not, if you're watching on playback, we all really appreciated that message.
We did. It was absolutely beautiful to receive that last night. And heartfelt thanks for sending it as well, because it gives us a wee boost. And that's what the best part, I think, the live events is as well, is when people actually come up and say, "Listen, I've been listening to you from this time," or "I listened to you through lockdown and I love the show," and these things are great to hear. So thanks everybody for your support. There's loads of folk in the comments, and we're going to get some of the comments up. I'm going to go back to the defence first of all. Kevin McCluskey, Joe Hart had a bit of a shockeroony in the first half, as you would call it back in the 80s. Starfelt didn't cover a cell in glory, and neither did Taylor, but all three of them start. I think Iwata played pretty well at right back. I was concerned about his overlapping capabilities. He was involved in the third goal. And I think that he did okay at right back. I'm interested to see how he performs today. Going back to Welsh, he's obviously stepping in for Kobayashi, who's injured. Welsh was on the list of 10 players that I would offload this pre-season. I give you my rationale on the blog. Check it out, acsom.net. Another one of those guys is starting in Turnbull, and a third of those 10 is on his way to Wigan, who are managed, of course, by Sean Maloney. Liam Shaw is there for a 1-year loan, so he'll go away and get games. What do you make of the defence, the structure of that defence? And as Laura said, Welsh comes back in. I don't think he's ever let us down, really, in a big way.
No, I think if you look at that defence, I know it's pre-season, but you want to play your strongest team. as much as he can and get everyone up to speed. I think with the players available, that's the strongest back five we've got, if you include Hart in there as well. So there's no issues with that. Those boys will need to play. They'll need to, as I said before, get the minutes in the legs, but also get the minutes together, because likely that will be the defence or the majority of the defence that starts the season for us. So they need to get the communication back up. So I'm happy with that being the back line. I know Joe Hart made his mistake the other day. He also made a few pretty decent saves as well. And you kind of come to expect it from Joe Hart in a way. He does have a mistake in him every now and again. And if he does it in a pre-season friendly match against Yokohama, I'm happy, because that's hopefully got it out of the way. And when it comes to the big games, he's fully focused and he doesn't make that mistake. So I'm happy with the back line. I'm happy with Iwata, actually, at right back, because I'd seen before that that's where he played a lot of his football at the beginning of his career. He actually made his debut for Japan in the Copa America, funnily enough, as a right back. So he's got experience of playing there. He looked a lot more comfortable there than he did playing as centre back, where he had last season. So as much as we're now, we have the concern over Johnston and Ralston being out, Iwata might be somebody that could step up and be that auxiliary right back that we need. So again, happy there. Starfelt and Taylor, always going to play them if they're fit, really, at the moment. And Stevie Welsh, I had my little dig at him becoming the next Owen O'Connell. But you're right, when he comes in, he generally plays well. His numbers are great when you look at them. He's pretty solid in the air. His distribution on the ground is good. He's a player that absolutely needs to be playing 20 games a season, though, right now, to get the most out of his potential. Whether he'll do that with us, I doubt it. But I'm comfortable enough with him being in there for this game and getting the minutes under his belt, so that come the first game of the season, if we need to play him, he's up to speed.
I think my take on Welsh was based on the fact that there was a trajectory when he first came into the side that was going in the right direction, but then last season it dipped. So he made 24 appearances in Ange Postecoglou's first season, followed by 6 appearances in the second season. And for a boy of his age, you've got to play a lot more football than that. And I actually would argue that you need to play more than 20 games. I think you need to be playing 30, 40 games of football at that age. If you're playing at a level like Celtic, if you make a step down, if you move from Celtic, you take a step down, you're probably looking to be a first pick every week and play your 50 games. So that was my take on Stephen Welsh. However, Brendan Rodgers might come in there. I'd see something in the player and think, well, no, I'm quite happy for you to be a backup. We're bringing in our 5th Legia Warsaw signing in the history of the club. I'm quite happy for you to be the backup, and we'll run with what we've got. Carter Vickers is going to be back soon enough, and we'll run with what we've got once the new centre-half arrives as well. Going into the midfield then, I'm going to just bring this up from Stephen Sloan. Always great to see you in the comments, Stephen. Osaka are 17 points behind Yokohama in the league, so hopefully today's game won't be as tough. You know what, right? I'm glad the other night was tough, Laura. I'm glad it was a test. I'm glad that it showed a few frailties that we've got. What's the point in going out and, as we used to do over in Bochum and all these different places when we used to go to the Netherlands and win 16-0? What's the point in that? Let's play the tough games. Let's get us ready. Let's get us, oven ready for the first competitive game.
Yeah, I don't know what Bayern Munich would have learned from winning 27-0 the other day, other than they're much better than a part-time team who just can't believe they're on the same pitch as Bayern Munich. So that's the thing about these games, is there's a danger that if you I was talking to my dad about the fact that Chelsea are playing Brighton or something like that in America, and I'm a little bit like, I get that they'll be playing against that team in the league in the season coming, but that to me screams of a team just going and playing somewhere so that other people can watch them play, rather than trying to learn something. And although there's an aspect to that, to what we're doing in Japan, we are playing against teams that I think are probably at least at a level with us in terms of their ability, if not a little bit higher than, certainly higher than the standard we'll be playing in Scotland. So, I think there's a lot to be said for playing against a decent standard of teams, putting out teams that you are going to learn something from rather than just an 11 who are fit and available, and making sure that you are actually taking something away from every game. I get that they're friendlies and I get that there's financial benefits to them and commercial benefits to them, but ultimately the financial and commercial benefits mean nothing if you don't then transfer success into the season. So I think certainly we'll hopefully have learned defensive things from the game the other day, but the encouraging thing is as well that we were able to put the ball in the back of the net. So there's positives and negatives to take away from both games, and hopefully we can see a little bit more of the latter today and a little bit less of the former. But I'll be keeping a very close eye on the defence specifically, because there was a few performances the other night from players who have been regular starters for us last season that I thought were very, very concerning. Joe Hart being the main one. But we've got time to sort these things out, and that's what these situations are for. I really hope that even if we don't land this Livakovic from Croatia, which it doesn't look like we will, that we've got options B, C and D on the list, because I think, Joe Hart at the age he's at, it's very well and good to say that he finished last season half decent, but there's a long time between now and the end of this season, and it'll be a lot closer to 37 than 36 at that point. And I can only see things going downhill for him from here.
Yeah, he's still a spring chicken, Laura. Owen O'Connell, then, you brought him up, Kevin. Who does he play with?
Acsom.
You've checked it. You said that you were a bit sheepish when you said it, as if to say, "Listen, I know, but it's not my own hard work."
Always Ryan
No,
Reynolds.
I saw someone put it in the comments.
Right. So he's joined the Wrexham Revolution, has O'Connell. He's now 27 years of age, and he spent time at Oldham, Cork, Walsall, Bury, Rochdale and Charlton before signing for Wrexham this year. I'm guessing it was a pre-season signing, although it may not have been, because he's already played 15 league games for them. So yes, Owen O'Connell, if you're tuning in, I hope you're well, pal. We thought you were brilliant in the hoops. Right, midfield. I don't want a backlash like we got from Osaze Urigide when we were criticising him and he started following us on Twitter, and I expected a DM. Thankfully, he then unfollowed us. McGregor, Turnbull and Hatate make up the midfield. Kevin, I'm going to come to you then. I thought Hatate was absolutely different level the other day there. I think that he's a player who has progressed season on season. You get that trajectory I was talking about when I was discussing Stephen Welsh. A lot of players hit that kind of peak, and then sometimes you think to yourself, if they don't move on, they might start going down the way, and that's what happens with a lot of players. Hatate has gone up and up, and on season 3 it looks as though he's going to do that again. I know it's just a friendly, but I'm really excited to see his progress this season. David Turnbull gets a run out. He's a guy who made my list of players I think should move on. He did play some football last season, but very much like Welsh, a lot less football than he did in Angie's first season. That was down to injury. That was down to us bringing in players in the January who got first-team experience and took it. They got an opportunity and they took it. But, fair play to Rodgers. He said, well, Turnbull's come on, he scored a goal, let's give you a game. How do you think he'll play, though? Do you think he'll be suited? We've spoken about the fact that Brendan Rodgers has played with a number 10 in the past, Kevin. Is Turnbull suited to that position?
I don't think he is. I don't think he's suited to a 10. And I think if you look at Tate and you look at Turnbull, you've got the two polar opposites in terms of how they've developed over the last few years. Hatate has come in and every single season he's improved and he's improved. I mean, it looks like he's going to plateau. He's kind of done that at the right times. It's come at the end of the season, or it's come going into the January winter shutdowns.
Yeah.
And then he just seems to go away and work on himself, and he comes back bigger, faster, stronger every single time, and he's done it again. And I know Wednesday was just a pre-season game, like you said, but every time he got the ball, he just had that wee bit of touch of class about him.
He did.
And you could tell that something was going to come. His passing was, again, we'll caveat, it was just a pre-season game. He was playing in an environment, again, that he knows really well because he's obviously come from the Japanese league. But he was just picking passes for fun. And he's one of those players, again, that you just look forward to for the coming season, that you think he's going to really be a big player for us. Turnbull, how long has he been with us now? 3 seasons, 4 seasons? He's not really improved. He's not kicked on and pushed on in that time, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah.
And I know that he's had injury problems, and I know Laura's going to shake her
Laura's not
head,
having
and we're probably going to fall out, and we're going to have some sort of virtual punching match after this.
Who said virtual?
Watch.
You're coming on the flight over. But no, I just don't think he's improved. He came as a really promising young Scottish player, and he hasn't kicked on. As I say, I know he's had injuries, but he's had over a year to recover from his injuries and get back in the challenge, and he hasn't managed to do it. He didn't really feature last season. He was coming on 10, 15 minutes to go when games were won. So again, he'll be a player, if you look at his numbers, he'll go so many goals, so many assists per minute and whatnot. He's looking really good. But he was doing it when games were won. He wasn't influencing games. And when he started, he was doing what one of my favourites, Haksabanovic, was doing. Whenever he started the game. So I think this is massive for him. But then, be a bit positive. Could he be this Rodgers team's Stuart Armstrong? The player who doesn't really have that much about his game in a way, but then Rodgers just finds the 1 or 2 things that he is good at, focuses on them, and makes him a player. You just never know. But at the moment, I see him being in there really to prove himself, but also to put himself in the shop window. That if it's not going to work out, he's at least got the minutes and he's at least shown something of what he can do. And he's got a good shot on him, so maybe somebody will take a punt on him.
Well, your comparison there talking about Stuart Armstrong, I think there are elements of Armstrong's game which are similar to Turnbull's, and one of those is the fact that he can pull something out of nothing from distance, which, often when Celtic are playing, particularly in domestic games where, there's a real rigid defensive kind of strategy from the opposition, sometimes you just need to break the deadlock, and sometimes the only way to do that is by having a player like David Turnbull stroke Stuart Armstrong in there who can fire something in from 25 yards. Yeah, it might be deflected, but they're willing to take that opportunity. I remember Ryan Christie was another player who very much was like that. His accuracy wasn't great, as Colin Watt will tell you. But David Turnbull is that type of player. And I think he's got bags and bags of talent. Laura, I really do. I know you're a big fan. You've been a big fan, since he came to the club. I do think he's got bags of talent. But like Welsh, if you're not playing regular football at his age, because they are, contemporaries, if you're not playing regular football at the age of Welsh and Turnbull, you've got to go somewhere else.
Yeah, I think everything Kevin raises is all valid points. As far as I still think he's a good player, but there's certainly not been the level of improvement that you would want. I think he, perhaps in a different system, adds a little bit more, and I think maybe Ange's system didn't entirely suit him. But having said that, was it Ange's first season that he played pretty much was one of the highest appearance numbers in Ange's first season, and then he got that really bad injury? And I actually think that's had a lot to do with why he's not been up to scratch. I think that injury has really done him damage. But regardless of how we've got here, this is where we are, and I think he'll not be happy with the lack of football time. I think you've seen that in some of his celebrations when he's come on and scored goals. He's been looking a little bit deflated, that kind of thing. He's getting to that point in his career in that age where he really should be hitting his peak, and he's not going to want to spend that on the bench at Celtic for certain. I think he's better than going back to a Motherwell or going to another Scottish club. I think he could certainly do a job in the Championship or the lower reaches of the Premier League. But the 6.5 dozen or the catch-22 of that situation is he can only attract that interest if he's getting game time, and he's not getting the game time, so maybe he's not getting seen by the people he needs to get seen by. And that's another thing that perhaps Rodgers is doing with this rotation and stuff. We talked about him trying to get to know what he's got and what he needs, but he's also maybe trying to establish what he doesn't need and give those players an opportunity to get an out to another club, because I'm sure, as much as he might not fit what we need anymore, and he might not be exactly the highest standard of midfielder, which we've got, which I certainly don't think he is, he's certainly going to be more than good enough for a lot of clubs that would be watching. So I wouldn't be surprised if he makes an exit before the start of the next season. And although I would be disappointed with it, I think circumstances being the way they are, it's entirely appropriate for both the club and for him.
There's loads of support every time you bring up Turnbull, and the fact that I think he should move on for the betterment of his own career, like you say, Laura, and the fact that, you know, he is surplus to requirements. You just got to look at his appearances last season. There are loads of people who come on and disagree with that, and they're big supporters of Turnbull. So I totally get that, and that's because he's a very talented player. You know what? I think his destination should be Italy. He should be looking at some of the young Scots who are going over there, Laura. He shares an agent with 2 or 3 of them, actually, who have gone over to Italy. And I think he would be brilliantly suited to Italian football. He would go over there. I mean, you look at what Liam Henderson's been, something a trailblazer over there. And fair play to the boy. You know what? He should never come back to Scottish football, Liam Henderson. He should stay out there, finish his career. And I think that, what a career it's been for the kid. So well done to everybody who does that. And I think Turnbull's one of those players as well. I can see that we've actually overrun a wee bit, and kickoff has happened, or it's about to happen. Thanks everybody for getting involved on this pre-match bulletin. We will be back at half-time. It's great to welcome Laura back to the show, as well as Kevin McCluskey. I'll be sitting at the Acsom bar if anybody wants to join me. It's a dry bar at the moment, but plenty of room if you want to bring a carry out to watch the game, if you know where we are. Thank you, everybody, for getting involved. Thank you, Laura and Kevin, for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.